Shout out to Christine Brennan. Team USA, y'all need to stop playing. Hold on, wait a second. Y'all will recognize and appreciate Caitlin Clark as the face of this whole get up. Nobody's checking for these other, no disrespect. Great basketball players. That don't mean people checking for you. You mean to tell me y'all put other people's face all on the Team USA stuff and y'all left Caitlin Clark off of it?
That's not just frustration you're hearing. That's the sound of every fan who's been watching the situation unfold with complete disbelief. Because when Team USA released their promotional materials for the upcoming Olympic cycle, one face was noticeably absent. The face that's been filling arenas, the face that's been breaking television records, the face of Caitlin Clark. And here's what makes this so much bigger than just one graphic or one promotional piece. This is Team USA essentially telling the world they don't understand what's happening in their own sport. Because while Caitlin Clark has been single-handedly dragging women's basketball into mainstream consciousness, the very people who should be capitalizing on that momentum are acting like it's not even happening. Let's be crystal clear about what we're discussing here. Team USA Basketball, the governing body responsible for representing American basketball on the world stage, had the opportunity to feature the most recognizable player in women's basketball on their promotional materials. Instead, they chose to leave her out entirely. Not reduced visibility, not smaller placement, completely absent. Many of you have been connecting these dots for weeks, and you were absolutely onto something. This isn't an isolated incident. This is part of a pattern that's been playing out all season long. The same energy that kept Caitlin off the Olympic roster despite her transformative impact on the sport. The same mentality that seems determined to pretend the Caitlin Clark phenomenon isn't reshaping everything we thought we knew about women's basketball's commercial ceiling. If you believe the story behind the story matters, smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track.
To go all out promoting women's basketball, bring new fans in, and get unprecedented attention for a team that dropped in TV viewership at the Paris Olympics. That's right, the women's USA viewership dropped at the Olympics in Paris. Nobody was watching it. They would have added the photo of one of the player to this graphic, but no. She continued.
Think about what Christine Brennan just revealed. Viewership for Team USA women's basketball actually dropped at the Paris Olympics. Dropped during a time when women's basketball was experiencing unprecedented growth stateside, and now, heading into the next Olympic cycle, with the chance to course correct with the opportunity to leverage the biggest star the sport has ever seen, USA Basketball is doubling down on the same approach that failed. This isn't just bad marketing. This is institutional resistance to change dressed up as basketball decisions. The stakes here extend far beyond hurt feelings or promotional oversights. We're talking about the future trajectory of women's basketball on the global stage. We're talking about whether the sport can capitalize on its current momentum or whether governing bodies will squander the opportunity of a generation because they're too invested in how things have always been done. Here's what makes this situation so incredibly frustrating. Caitlin Clark didn't ask to become the face of women's basketball. She just played the game at such an elite level, with such an exciting style, that millions of people who had never watched women's basketball before suddenly couldn't look away. She brought her college audience with her to the WNBA. She turned Indiana Fever games into must-see television. She filled arenas in cities that had never cared about the WNBA before. And Team USA's response? Pretend it's not happening. Let's walk through the timeline because the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. First, there was the Olympic roster decision. Despite Caitlin breaking virtually every rookie record in sight, despite her games drawing ratings that dwarfed anything the WNBA had seen before, she was left off the team. The official explanation focused on experience and team chemistry. Fair enough on the surface. Except when you look at Olympic history, Rosters have been adjusted for transcendent talents before. Rules have been bent. Exceptions have been made. Just apparently not for Caitlin Clark. Then came the Paris Olympics themselves. And just as Christine Brennan reported, viewership declined. The narrative was supposed to be that Team USA women's basketball was so dominant, so exciting, that they'd capture global attention. Instead, without the star power that casual fans actually wanted to watch, the audience shrank. The very scenario that many of you predicted in the comments came true. Now we're in the next cycle. USA Basketball has had months to analyze what happened. They've watched Caitlin's impact on the WNBA. They've seen the attendance figures. They've seen the television ratings. They've seen the merchandise sales. They've seen the social media engagement. All the data points in the same direction. Caitlin Clark is the draw. Caitlin Clark is the story. Caitlin Clark is who people want to watch. And yet, when it came time to create promotional materials, when it was time to put faces on the marketing that would introduce the next Olympic cycle to the world, they left her out.
Yeah, well, I've given it, as you know, over the last 60 hours. I broke the news right around midnight, Friday to Saturday morning. And I think on both fronts, merit and publicity, you, of course, mentioned it, it's just a total swing and a miss by the national governing body, by USA Basketball, just a missed opportunity. And but I'll start with my answer by saying I have covered this women.
Christine Brennan broke this story and immediately characterized it as exactly what it is: a total swing and a miss, a complete failure by the national governing body. And she's covered this sport for decades. She understands the politics. She knows the players. She's seen the patterns. And even she can't make sense of this decision from any rational standpoint. Because here's what USA Basketball apparently doesn't understand. Or maybe they understand and just don't care. When you're competing for attention during the Olympics, you're not just competing against other basketball. You're competing against gymnastics. You're competing against swimming. You're competing against track and field. You're competing against every sport on the Olympic program for media coverage, for promotional space, for viewer attention. Sports editors have to make decisions about what to cover. Television networks have to decide what to show. Social media algorithms have to determine what to promote. And in that incredibly crowded landscape, where dozens of gold medals are being awarded on any given day, you need star power. You need names that casual fans recognize. You need storylines that transcend the sport itself. Caitlin Clark provides all of that. She's the storyline. She's the star. She's the reason casual fans would tune in to watch women's basketball when they could be watching Simone Biles or Katie Ledecky or any of the other massive Olympic stars competing on that same day. By excluding her from promotional materials, USA Basketball is essentially announcing they don't actually want to maximize attention for women's basketball. They're content with being one sport among many, fighting for scraps of coverage, hoping that basketball purists will seek them out, instead of leveraging the mainstream appeal they've been handed on a silver platter. Reading between the lines reveals something even more troubling. This isn't just incompetence. This feels personal. This feels like gatekeeping. This feels like certain people within USA Basketball have decided that Caitlin Clark's path to stardom, the way she's captivated audiences, the demographic she appeals to, somehow doesn't fit their vision for how women's basketball should grow. They want the sport to grow on their terms, through their preferred channels, with their chosen stars. And if that means deliberately downplaying the one player who's actually breaking through to mainstream consciousness, so be it. Let me know in the comments what you think is really driving these decisions, because I want to hear your perspective on whether this is just organizational incompetence or something more deliberate. Drop your thoughts below.
Caitlin Clark on that team, the team that so richly deserves attention and doesn't get it and won't get it without her. because there's just so much going on in an Olympics. On that same day, there probably will be 30 other gold medals given out, and sports editors and others have to make a decision. Do you go to Simone Biles? Do you go to women's soccer? Where do you go? It's not, there's just too much going on. You put Caitlin Clark on that team, and every single one of those guys that can't.
Christine Brennan lays out the reality with perfect clarity. 30 other gold medals on the same day. Simone Biles competing, women's soccer in action, sports editors making impossible choices about what to cover. And in that environment, without Caitlin Clark, women's basketball becomes just another sport hoping for attention instead of demanding it. Think about what that means practically. A sports editor at a major newspaper has limited space, limited resources. They can send photographers and reporters to maybe 3 or 4 events. Without a transcendent star, without a storyline that their readers are already invested in, why would they prioritize women's basketball over gymnastics or swimming or track? They wouldn't. And they didn't in Paris. But put Caitlin Clark on that team, and suddenly you have a built-in narrative. You have the college superstar making her Olympic debut. You have the player who brought millions of new fans to women's basketball, taking the international stage. You have the controversy and conversation about whether she should have been on the previous team. You have storylines for days that write themselves. Media coverage follows star power. Casual viewers follow familiar faces. Merchandise sales follow popularity. This isn't complicated. This is basic sports marketing that every other professional league understands instinctively. The NBA builds around its stars. International soccer promotes its biggest names. The Olympics themselves center their coverage on athletes who transcend their sports. Everyone gets it, except apparently USA Basketball. The 1992 Dream Team comparison is devastating because it's so perfectly analogous. That team didn't just win gold. They globalized basketball in ways that are still paying dividends 3 decades later. Kids in Africa, Asia, Europe, South America all wanted to be like Mike, wanted to play like Magic, wanted to shoot like Larry Bird. The NBA became a global brand because USA Basketball understood that star power translates across borders and cultures. Now imagine Caitlin Clark in that role for women's basketball. Imagine her number 22 jersey being sold in markets where the WNBA has barely registered. Imagine young girls in countries where women's basketball has minimal infrastructure seeing someone who plays with flair and confidence and joy. Imagine the developmental programs that could be funded with the revenue from truly global marketing, not theoretical, not aspirational. Actually possible right now with the star power that already exists. USA Basketball just has to be willing to use it. But here's what really reveals the short-sightedness. The money that could be generated from Caitlin's Olympic presence wouldn't just line pockets. It would fund exactly the kind of grassroots development that grows the sport long-term. International clinics, youth programs, infrastructure, investment in emerging markets. The Dream Team model proved that Olympic success with marketable stars creates a virtuous cycle where commercial success funds athletic development, which creates the next generation of stars. USA Basketball is choosing to forego all of that because they can't get past their own institutional inertia. Let's filter out the noise and focus on what this decision actually accomplishes. By excluding Caitlin from promotional materials, USA Basketball sends a message to every potential sponsor, every media partner, every international federation that they're not serious about maximizing the commercial potential of women's basketball. They're telling the market that they value internal politics over growth. They're announcing that fitting in matters more than standing out, and the sport will pay the price for that choice long after the people who made this decision have moved on. You were onto something when you noticed how different the energy is when Caitlin is involved versus when she's not. The attendance numbers don't lie. The television ratings are unambiguous. The social media engagement is measurable. Every single metric points in the same direction. People want to watch Caitlin Clark play basketball, not just basketball fans. People casual sports fans, people who've never cared about the WNBA, people who can't name 5 other players in the league. That's not an insult to other players. That's the reality of star-driven sports entertainment. LeBron James draws viewers who don't care about the other guys on the court. Tom Brady sold jerseys to people who couldn't name his offensive lineman. Serena Williams brought audiences who skipped every other tennis match. This is how sports work. This is how they've always worked. Pretending otherwise doesn't make you principled. It makes you poor. Because at the end of the day, the money matters, not for greed, for sustainability, for growth, for creating the infrastructure that allows more players to make real livings, for funding youth programs that create the next generation, for building international presence that expands opportunities. All of that requires revenue, and revenue follows attention, and attention follows stars. USA Basketball had the star. They just refused to use her. The consequences of this decision will play out over the next several years. When Olympic viewership disappoints again, when international growth stalls, when merchandise sales underwhelm, when media coverage focuses on other sports, remember this moment. Remember when they had the opportunity to change the trajectory and chose not to because it didn't fit their internal politics. Connecting the dots reveals a governing body more concerned with maintaining existing power structures than maximizing the sport's potential. They'd rather protect the status quo than embrace the disruption that real growth requires. They'd rather exclude the star than adjust their approach to accommodate her impact. And women's basketball will be smaller because of it. If you want to see how this situation develops, if you want to stay ahead of the narrative instead of just reacting to it, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Because this story is far from over. The Olympics are coming. The decisions USA Basketball makes in the next few months will either confirm they've learned nothing or show they're finally ready to prioritize growth over ego. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and get ready for the next chapter in the most fascinating power struggle in sports. Until next time, keep questioning the narratives, keep demanding accountability, and keep recognizing that the story behind the story is always more interesting than what they want you to see.